Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Friday Reads update for August 2nd, 2019, aka the hard scrabble to finish up my July reading. I think it's going to happen this weekend. I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. I'm filming the night before, and actually my supervisor is off on tomorrow/Friday, and I'll have to take over some of his duties, so I should, get to bed and get my head in the game tomorrow. But just to update, I did finish Hunger by Roxanne Gay, the memoir about her body, which predominantly goes into what it's been like to be an obese woman living in America. Also, it goes into her journey with sexual assault and the long aftermath of how it shaped her as a person or how she's dealt with it. And I don't know, my uplifting message, I think, from the end is now that she's actually admitted to what happened to her. She seems to be moving beyond it and wanting better for herself, which is great. But that's, both connected and unconnected to the obesity issue, because being obese in the world is its own issue, really, the way that people treat you and the reactions of society. And yes, some of the realities of physical health, although mostly this is about emotional and mental health, about what it does to a person to be othered so much in public. I thought it was really good and really raw. I'd be curious to check back in with Roxane Gay, not that she's going anywhere, but if she wrote another memoir, like, in several more years or a couple decades, to see where she is next on her journey. I'd definitely be curious, but I imagine we'll be following her along the way. Speaking of people to follow and people writing nonfiction, the next thing I finished was The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. This is a very short book. It's only a little over 100 pages, but it really packed quite a wallop, so I did take more time with it than I hoped I would. Surprise, surprise. But it just covered a lot of stuff. Some of which was relatively harrowing because not much has changed in terms of race relations in the United States, and Baldwin has some pretty tough claims to make, I think, about the nature of freedom and sort of the revolutionary aspect that we'd have to take in society to really achieve true freedom. And he talks about what's basically white supremacism and why it stays in power. And it's not only because of violence, it's also because of people who don't really want to go too far from the status quo. He also talks a bit about his experience with the Nation of Islam and what he agreed with and didn't agree with where they were coming from. And he talks about his experience in the church and I think makes a bit of an argument for post-religion and post-nation state, and that sort of globalism is probably the only radical way in his mind to achieve full freedom. I might be going a little too far with that. I haven't officially reviewed this on Goodreads yet, which is my final step in reading any book, but I want to make sure that I write something that's worthy of this text, because there's definitely a lot to think about. As of right now, I'm reading a more approachable text in the form of a YA contemporary novel. This is Yaqui Delgado Wants to Kick Your Ass by Medina. Both this and The Fire Next Time and 4 other books that I've already read were part of the Uncensored DC book scavenger hunt last year. The DC Public Library every year picks 6 books that have been banned in certain situations and has a citywide scavenger hunt. And I wanted to make sure I finished last year's 6 before hopefully we do this all again next September, so basically a month from now. This is the story of Pity Sanchez, who's recently moved to a new neighborhood in Queens with her mother and is starting out at a new school where she runs into some bullying. This goes a bit into her relationship with the rest of the Latina community in her new school, which is strained particularly because she doesn't come from the projects and does really well in school, so she's sort of in a different social group than them. She's also dealing with wanting to find her father, and there's a sort of dramatic backstory with that, and she might be in a little bit of a romance at this point of the story, or something along those lines. It's easier to read in terms of narrative, but I think Medina gives her character a lot of complex emotion that's appropriate for her age. I read a lot of YA fantasy, that's my personal jam, so the experiences of teens in that are relatively unusual, but coming back to contemporary for a little bit, I feel like I understand where she's coming from, this sort of fear of getting adults involved in her problems because she doesn't want to be narked on or seem weak, and so it's sort of creating more problems than it solves. She's projecting an air to her teachers and to her mother and her aunt that isn't necessarily really her, but she's struggling with how to deal with her problems, and I respect that because it seems really real for the age, because you're trying to negotiate who you are and how to take care of your problems when you don't have all the authority of an adult, but you also don't want to lean on adults anymore. So yeah, I'll be curious to see where this goes. I'm certainly hoping to finish it soon. I think I'll be able to finish it on Friday, although maybe I'm a slower reader lately, so maybe I shouldn't make promises. But I do ultimately also want to finish this book over the weekend. This is The Pale of Settlement, a short story collection by Margo that I've been holding up a lot in the last few videos. This is, I believe, predominantly stories about Jewish women in America and Israel and other places, so it's right in my wheelhouse. Plus, well, July is my birthday, and so I write short stories, and I try to privilege short story collections a little bit at least in July, so once I finish this, I'll feel like I can check something off of my to-do list. And then into the August reading. I am starting to compile my books. It's even getting some off of the shelves and not only going to the library for them, so huzzah! I hope to get a good reading schedule down this month, maybe something more like June, where I felt like at least the first few weeks, I was moving really quickly. But at the same time, I don't love saddling myself with too many obligations when it comes to reading, so long as I'm making steady progress here. I will hopefully be back next week to update on my progress, and I'll hopefully be back before next week even to do more videos. I want to do an author's answer video. But in the meantime, everyone, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.